And we had, obviously, It's a Wonderful Life. So a couple of things real quick, and then we're going to jump in with one of our incredible and wonderful esteemed guests for today, and share that, I guess my first ask, what's present for you before we shape anything? When you hear Happy Christmas, when you see the Rudolph clip, with Santa, Rudolph, the land of the misfit toys, and It's a Wonderful Life, and I'll just drop in, what's present for you? What's present for you about your own life, about people, about possibility, about story? And for me, just the emotional resonance, the hope, the faith of John Lennon, all of his perspectives in the world, I don't necessarily agree with, but I agree with hope and belief in people and faith in a better world. And when we go to the Rudolph clip, many things become present for me. But for those that don't know, Rudolph was seen as a misfit. Rudolph had a red nose, and he was ostracized and removed from the group, without love, without care, in very painful ways. And in the end, that island where there was like desperation and sadness, that was the island of the misfit toys that were there because they were something wrong with them. They had a defect. And in that moment, that night, there was a storm, and Christmas was going to be canceled. And Rudolph, with his challenge, his defect, his disability, what he was ostracized for, all of a sudden everybody's story changed, and Santa realized that Rudolph could lead. And my perspective is that the misfit toys didn't need to be rescued at all. And they weren't misfits in the first place. And they had everything they needed. And they just didn't even understand that and weren't present to it, of their amazingness and greatness and the love they had for each other. And we're all into It's a Wonderful Life. What is the precursor to that is that George Bailey had desire to not live anymore because he had something very difficult happen in his business. And there we go.
It's something very difficult happen in his business, and he had lost, and it was sort of stolen from a competitor, $8,000, which is all the money in the world, as they were depositing it in a bank that was other people's money, essentially in a bank. And he was potentially going to be under arrest and humiliated, publicly embarrassed. That was the story around it. And he was miserable and angry and just wanted to escape his life. And he had an angel that came down and showed him what his life would have looked like if he was never born. And through that process, he just wanted to get back to his life. And he was thrilled that the problems he had, which were real, the guy was facing going to jail, and palpable, were things he was grateful for, and just things he wanted back, because he wanted his life. And how often we can forget those things as we face all the complexities and challenges in our life, and especially those that arise at the Christmas and holiday season. And because it's all just a story, and the way that ends is all these people who are angry and like wanted their money and were flipping out, a little bit earlier in the movie, those are the people that were there to help him to recover the money after he didn't even care anymore about it. He had given up his attachment to the outcome, and all the love, the caring for the sacrifices, the things he had given as a servant leader came pouring back into him, and the joy of all of it was present. So good morning. It's Christmas Eve, and wherever you are, however this is going to be, love you, heart to heart, present for you, we are. And I want to welcome a person I love as much or more than any human on earth, my son, Tyler Callaghy, and couldn't be more thrilled to have you here, bud. So Merry Christmas Eve morning, pal, and how are you?
Merry Christmas Eve. I'm doing pretty great today.
Well,
not.
Yeah, I become less great though, because everybody keeps telling me how handsome and amazing you are. You reminded me that I'm getting old. No, so amazing.
Thank you.
So good morning, and Tyler and I had a deep conversation about some stuff, and I'm like, well, hey, let's go in the huddle. So what's going on, pal? What's on your heart? What's present for you on this Christmas Eve morning?
Stories, right? I think stories are what I am present to. And that's what we were talking about the other day, is stories and distortion. And today's a day actually where that's quite relevant. And tomorrow, you know? So that's what's present for me.
Yeah. How so, bud? I know some of how so, and we did not script this, obviously, guys, and you know that, because I want to be like real and lean in. There's like topics present and energy present and outcomes to be delivered in service of story and our hearts and our acceleration, our magic, and also dealing with pain that comes up around the holidays for folks, and especially in this holiday season. So, yeah, let's lean in, bud. So what's there around stories for you?
So, number one, what is Christmas? Right? It's an awesome question. Jesus' birthday, right? That's the story of Western civilization, is that December 25th is Jesus' birthday. That's the story that has been that way since 200, 300 AD. Now you might say, why has that only been the story since 200 to 300 years after Jesus lived? Because Christmas is just a story. It's a political story. It was a campaign by the Romans to convert everyone to Christianity. There was a popular winter solstice holiday, which the winter solstice was marked on the Roman calendar as December 25th. And they needed to replace that holiday with something else when they switched from the Roman gods, i.e., Jupiter and Saturn, Mars, to Christianity. And that's it. That's the only reason any of us on this call think today or tomorrow is important. Jesus was likely born, based on biblical evidence, in March. Around March 25th was what scholars even at the time thought. And even up until the 1800s, Christmas was basically just St. Patrick's Day. It did not become a day of giving or family until Charles Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol. I was just reading about it. He invented a new definition for today in 1843. This holiday is younger than our country. And that's the only reason we're here. Why we have any of those movies and why we think today or tomorrow is important.
Right. Now, I don't think you're saying that today and tomorrow aren't important. And it's
no.
Yeah. So
I'm saying that's the only reason we do.
Yeah, because we're going somewhere with this in a second.
Yes, there's a point.
Yeah. So tell us, Ty, why you do think these days are important, aside from Christianity, faith, belief, but about family, connection. Like, let's lean into why it is important.
It's important. Yeah, it is important to have all of those things and to have days to celebrate those things, certainly.
Yeah. But you're leaning in with specificity around a topic that is heavy on your heart, around maybe elevating the celebration of a day, right? In the context of some other things. So please.
Yeah. So
actually, let me lean in on this for a second, because what we're talking about is, I love Christmas to no end. And Tyler and I and my daughters are not going to be together on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. And we cried about it, because this is deeply rooted in our emotional and nervous system. And the nuance of this conversation is around the power of story. So this is, we're Christians, right? This is not a knock on Christianity in any way. It's a powerful, scotoma creating, uncomfortable dynamic that we probably don't want to talk about, the fact that Charles Dickens in the 1840s invented the Christmas we celebrate in a book. and that Jesus's birthday is in March. Those are probably things that may make you want to like say, I don't even want to listen to this for a second. But the power of this is that we can create our own stories and realities about everything that serves us. And it may serve us completely to love Christmas as it is, on the day it is, in the way it is, unless and until it would cause some pain and harm. Like, for example, if you feel like you're one of the misfit toys, because whatever the dynamics are in your life, and let's say it wasn't COVID, you're going to be alone. It may not serve in that capacity, in that context, to step into the same frame as maybe Tyler and my Christmas last year with our family, or 2 years ago with my grandmother and our family, and the magic. Like, we could choose not to diminish anything, but to write a new story. And I'm going to be writing a new story in the next 48 hours. It's going to be a different one. And the story I don't want to write is one of sadness. So in a moment, we could step into like one reality and truth or another, because they're all just stories. So Ty, please, back to you on, what's present for you and heavy on your heart about problems, issues, dynamics around things in the world currently, and Christmas and celebrating, and what stands you've taken in our family.
Yes. So I've essentially taken the stance of keeping everyone apart on Christmas, which is tough. That's a bad job to have, to say we can't celebrate Christmas together, right? But that is what is safest for everyone this year. And we had a long chat about that, and we discussed, and we decided that we couldn't be sure that it would be safe or healthy to celebrate together. And that's the decision that we concluded. And so that's more or less the decision that we came to share today with everyone on this call and all of your families, is that it's hard. It's really hard to stay apart on Christmas. However, it would be harder to have your cousins, aunts, uncles, and grandparents on the way to the hospital in 2 weeks. Because we've experienced that, haven't we?
Yeah.
We know that feeling of not knowing if someone's gonna come back. And that is a feeling that, I'm sure many people on this call have felt and experienced, and worse pain than that in the last 9 months. So this Zoom call today is almost a beg and ask for everyone to stay apart if you can, today and tomorrow, through this holiday season, as things are so bad right now in terms of cases. And if you can, to behave in a way that really shows the love for your family. Like tomorrow, right, Grandpa's coming over here, which is not my mom's dad, which is not probably my choice or my favorite thing in the entire world. But we're going to leave the windows open in the middle of winter, wear masks the whole time while we're not eating. And we're going to be sitting at this kitchen table while he's in the living room. And we won't hug him or anything. I'll see you outside, and I'll just be here with Mom, Courtney, and Emma.
Yeah. And Ty, for people, because this issue has become at some point a political one.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And to be clear, this is not a political issue for you in any way.
No.
Or for me. In fact, in many ways, you identify yourself as a libertarian.
Yeah.
Of people, right? So if you could speak into for a second some of the reality of COVID in the US versus in the world, and like factually, as opposed to politically on either side.
Yeah, factually. Yes. Good idea. So, we can look at China, right? We don't want to do what they did. We can see that on a political level, right? Human rights violations, etc., to curb the spread of COVID, allegedly. So we're not talking about that. But we can talk about Australia. We can talk about Taiwan. We can talk about New Zealand, places like that, which recognized how apolitical all of this is. Their countries united towards a goal, apolitically, no sides. Now, were there people who protested? Yes, of course, but not in the same way that this country has responded. In Taiwan, there are EDM concerts going on right now on an island of 23 million people. 7 have died of COVID since March. Our current projections are to pass 500,000 deaths by the end of the spring, which is more Americans than died in World War II. So it's not factually, this did not ever have to be the way it was for any Western nation, Italy, Spain, France, the UK, etc. It never had to be a political issue in the first place. That was a story that was invented. The countries that didn't invent that story are fine now. Their lives are back, right? They don't have to argue about masks anymore in Taiwan. Their process is you fly there, you quarantine for 2 weeks. If you break that quarantine, you get smacked with thousands of dollars in fines. And then after those 2 weeks, you're free to go. Do whatever you want on that island. As a member of any country, any of us could go there right now, quarantine for 2 weeks, and then be done with it. And that is a scientific, apolitical approach that the United States or most Western countries refused. Because we have a story that violates freedom, right? That's a story. What is freedom is a story. Is it more of a story to say our freedom is to not wear masks and to be living in this hellscape that we are all currently living in the United States? Or is it more free to have a draconian 1984 lockdown for a couple of weeks and then life goes back to normal, like in Taiwan or New Zealand? Right? Those are just stories. That's not a value judgment. That's just what each population decided was their story of freedom. That's it.
And going back to, we discussed somebody like, I can't take it anymore, mental health. And we're discussing like Anne Frank, and we're discussing World War II. So, just want to speak into your perspective on the collective sacrifice and the generation of like Nani and Pop. That's my grandparents, I was great grandparents, and Grandma Rose and Joe. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a story in and of itself, right? But that is a story that serves in a whole different level. So if we're looking back, that was when the 1940s, right? The world was at war. People were dying everywhere. And it was disease, but it was mostly people. And collectively as a society, the United States of America decided to unite towards something greater without complaint. You watch Captain America, which is again a story, keep going back. He kept lying to try to go fight the Nazis. How do we compare that to today, right? We're being asked to watch Netflix and Zoom. We're not being asked to go die on beaches or get blown up somewhere 1,000 miles from home, 10,000 miles from home, to go die of a disease in the jungle, right? We're being asked to stay home. We're not hiding in attics, right? The collective sacrifice that we're all being asked to give is so far below the typical sacrifices of humanity And we collectively can't do it. We can't.
Yeah. And
or we won't, rather.
Yeah. And, Tyler and I have had some difficult conversations because obviously I have not. And there is immense complexity on the edges of these things. And, Ty, do you want to speak into, some of your perspective on, my decisions over the last number of weeks? Either way. So please.
Yeah, I mean, you've been traveling, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to not sound like I'm on a high horse right now. And it's been hard to sound, to try to avoid that over this pandemic, because I've been telling people they're wrong quite a lot, which is a hard position to be in. But
Tyler and I, we had just to go back when this began, because some of the people in the ecosystems that I'm in were saying, this was grossly exaggerated and this wasn't that serious, et cetera. And there was a point they were saying that, the death numbers would be, how is this? Tyler has efficiently and effectively debunked every dynamic of theory that this is overstated somehow. That the deaths are not really corona deaths, and I mean it's minuscule numbers that would be eliminated from the situation.
So ready, I'll speak into that.
Yeah,
off the bat. Right, we can look at excess deaths of something. Those are way higher this year. More deaths at home, especially in March and April, that were uncounted in New York and New Jersey. Every epidemiologist and virologist actually says that in the United States, the death numbers are undercounted. And it was a myth that car accident deaths and murders, where people tested positive for COVID afterwards, were largely counted and contributed to the numbers. There was not enough testing in March and April, especially to even go on dead people. So that's just all a straight up story that it even could have been exaggerated in the first place.
Right. And I think what's present for me and the value takeaway, there are many, is what Unblinded stands for in its way of being, and as Jack Tavares has coined, level 5 thinking calls for us to not have to live in every truth in every minute, right? There's horrors and terrible things happening around the world, and we're here to be positive and optimistic and loving and caring and accelerating. And we're here to figure out what does that mean minute to minute, day to day. And so Ty and I had some, complicated conversations about the risk factors of me traveling, the harm that can cause to me or somebody else, right? In those processes. And my cost benefit analysis came down on there's relationships that can be created that the same way that people made sacrifices when they were at war, or people made risk sacrifices, being examples of possibility, like David Goggins running a 100-mile race that put his life at risk, that I was making calculated decisions about those processes. And they were not social, meaning the things that I've put myself through the prism and filter during this dynamic. Am I serving this mission or not in the decision? So we could argue about them all the time, but the litmus test I put myself through is this serving the mission in a meaningful enough way to engage in this behavior or not? And I'm not saying I'm coming down on the right side of those arguments, but that's a place that, that we at Unblinded and Tyler and I have reconciled to. Is that a fair statement, T?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, what is Unblinded really about? That's a question that we have to keep asking ourselves, especially as this movement takes off and grows. And I think the decision that you and I came to the other day, or the conclusion rather, not decision, is that this movement is going to change the world. Whatever way in in whatever way we can help the most people is what we should be doing. So in that risk assessment, if that risk of getting COVID and dying was outweighed by the fact that the progress that could be made for Unblinded would outweigh that in the future, that Unblinded could legitimately influence who becomes president in a few decades. Right? That's what we're talking about here. That's the risk that we're weighing, not money. This is not about money. Like, who gives a shit, right? This is about unblinding. And that's the risk that we're weighing. How it was that worse than unblinding humanity. And you decided no. Traveling was more important. Unblinding humanity was more important than staying 100% safe, which you could argue about and disagree with. Whatever. That's the decision that you came down on, right?
Yeah. In the same way, I think standing for surfing and other things is an important piece of what we're doing here, to step into the face of fear. And from my heart, because Tyler has said, Dad, you're standing in the space of representing things to people. Like, what you're doing, people model. So when people see you traveling, it's sending a message of like, yeah, like, go travel, have fun, like, have at it. And he brought a lot of that present for me. And so that on Christmas, as we roll into this, present to the power of our own ability to create story and make decisions and think about the utility of our actions for people and what's present, we want to give that gift today, as well as for people who are sitting in the space of being alone, to realize that we're never alone. And that's just a story. It is just a story. And Tyler, Courtney, Emma, and I are going to celebrate Christmas beautifully, wonderfully, magically, incredibly, just after a bit of quarantining time, and reconciling all those different dynamics, with every impact. As we sit here with my dad on oxygen and being at Dr. Roger Sahori's office yesterday, and thank you, Dr. Roger, you're incredible. And my dad had so much pain in his neck, it was crazy. And my dad was sitting there crying, saying, I think I might be dying. And my mom, who, politically is on a different plane than my dad, they're, complete opposite ends of the spectrum. And my mom was, at a social function a weekend ago, purely social, bunch of people, all these people, 70 years old, everybody got COVID, everybody that was there. Ty doesn't even know that. Joe, Jerry's brother, like everybody that was there. And it was just like for, pure socialization. And, there's a great potential one of those people is going to die. It's with that many people over 70 years old, 15 people with COVID over 70, that's a really complex dynamic. And again, there's no blame, no judgment, no blame or judgment, but just perspective and reality. And Ty, we're having a conversation that it came up, like, when do we open Christmas presents? And somebody's like, we got to open Christmas presents on Christmas Day. And Ty's like, Anne Frank, it was Anne Frank we're talking about, right, Ty, or no?
Yeah.
Anne Frank, what was your comment about Anne Frank?
Her and her family hid in the annex for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And did not go outside.
Yeah. So we're present to today, and let's be present to it. It is Christmas Eve. And that has deep, resonant meaning. And if all things are on track and everything is safe and you're going to be, in the position that you're in, it's amazing. Like, feel the magic and the power and the beauty and the wonder of what we watched in It's a Wonderful Life. But those same people were at each other's throats in that movie 2 hours before. So we cause leadership. We create our story by stepping into loving people unconditionally boundaries, but also not thinking that we can drink poison and it can make us fly. We are not bulletproof and immune from COVID, and the long-term effects are powerful and dramatic. There's elite level athletes that have dropped dead on athletic fields from post-COVID, dynamics. It is real. It is powerful. It is something that we have not seen before this way. We've had other pandemics, but we don't know the long-term effects. We don't know what's going to happen. So be mindful. And I want to extend my heartfelt apologies if I haven't been more clear around these dynamics. We had the unblinded immersion in LBI. I feel we were miraculously blessed by God that something negative didn't happen. And in hindsight, and I don't know what the right answer was, because that was such a powerful accelerant and connector. I don't know. I don't know if I, knowing what I know now, with it all to do over again, what the right decision would have been. It probably would have been not to have it, and because God forbid, it could have ended unblinded if something went wrong. So as we look into 2021, it's going to be an amazing year. It's going to be an incredible year. But Ty, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Yes?
Yeah. And that's maybe why we've come, in the summer, in August, I went to a 4th of July party with 50 people, right? So I'm not sitting here as someone who's just been perfect. I've been bad, poorly behaved in the past. But what has changed now, I think, is that we know this will end. The end is coming, right? In the summer, we didn't know. COVID was something that we didn't even know if it was ever going to go away. It could have just been floating around and it would be like the flu. We didn't know that. We did not know that the pandemic would one day be over. We now have that certainty. By the summer, optimistically, hopefully by the end of the fall, and certainly by the end of 2021, we will have life back to normal substantially, thanks to modern medicine. And so that's kind of why I think we've come so far in this moment, is to just say, try to stick it out to the end, please, on behalf of the doctors and nurses of this nation. It does not affect me if 500,000 Americans die. If I don't know them, that doesn't change Tyler Callaghan's life. But there are people up to their elbows in corpses in hospitals across this country who are asking all of us to just stick it out a little longer. Just a little longer. I know that my friends, right? We have friends, moms that are nurses. They can't take it anymore. They couldn't take it in March. They had PTSD from that, and now they're being asked to do it again. We had an open book exam that we failed the United States twice. And now we're paying for that again. I was reading an article about a town in either North or South Dakota, with 2 states that have been, by percentage, the worst affected by COVID. And people were crying a week ago when the town council voted to implement a mask mandate. People were crying a week ago as they saw their neighbors dying. It was a small town, a few hundred people, everyone knew each other. People were dropping dead. Local referees, people at the local Dunkin' Donuts just weren't there anymore. And they still were crying over the masks. That is a uniquely spoiled perspective. That is spoiled. And I don't judge, because that is a perspective shared by millions and millions of people in the Western world. But if we're going to compare that to, loving thy neighbor, right? Crying about wearing a mask is a little spoiled bitch attitude to have, as people are carting bodies into trucks because there's no room left in the morgues. Southern California has no ICU beds left. This is real. We say now, the hospitals are getting crowded. Hospitals didn't used to get crowded. That wasn't just something people said. And we didn't know if that was ever going to change, but now we have the certainty. I know people who've gotten the vaccine already. our cousin, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Bastek in Philly, right? Around Philly.
Well, Jimmy's daughter, who was in the truck when my uncle was killed in that accident. Yeah, she got the vaccine a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
She's an OBGYN in an underprivileged community at University of Pennsylvania, delivering thousands of babies.
And that's a whole other conversation, right? That we will certainly have to have on another huddle in the future when more unblinded members are eligible to get the vaccine. But the bottom line is that it is the light is at the end of the tunnel, as you said.
Yeah.
Like the end is in sight, and we just have to be a little bit more vigilant, a little bit longer, and a lot of lives could be saved by just the people on this call and their families staying apart in the next couple of weeks, especially.
And if any edge on this, if there sounds like there's any edge on this for Ty, he sat in our driveway, and we were 15 feet apart, right? Crying about how unable, I guess he felt powerless to have helped people stop dying. And the pain he felt of my mom, who we love to no end. I mean, how much do you love Grammy, Ty?
So much.
Yeah. And going to a party and getting COVID, and yeah. And so I'm not judging her, love her. I mean, but it was just so dramatically unnecessary. And our perspective have been shaped by fallacies. Like fallacies caused the Holocaust. Like millions of people were murdered because they just made stuff up. Like we make stuff up, and I really, we say like Neverland is wherever we go, and it is. But if we're going to make stuff up, let's make up beautiful things. Like, let's make up beautiful things to cause ourselves to make healthier and better choices and decisions, not ones that can cause harm and death. And in terms of, looking at evidence, life, science, conspiracy theory. I once thought that JFK, I was convinced 100% that Lee Harvey Oswald did not act alone and there was a second shooter. And I believed it because of the magic bullet theory, that there's no way the bullet could have done what it did. Except I've seen 5 shows now in the last 10 years with modern science showing how there was one shooter. And that bullet did exactly what a bullet would do. And those shots were entirely able to be shot. Like the big theories were nobody can get those shots off at that speed, and the bullet couldn't have done that. Well, computer models show the bullet did nothing strange and that people could get off those shots. But the world still believes that there's a second shooter, and Lee Harvey Oswald could not have acted alone. And so, there is literally, if you watch the movie JFK, which Oliver Stone should be ashamed of himself, because I love that movie. It was one of my favorite movies ever. And all of the things that lead to the conspiracies were made up, completely made up. Like, and all you need to do is insert one fact, like, hey Ty, did you see how Rob Gill kind of looked when we talked about that thing? You saw that, right? Yeah, I saw that. And all of a sudden there's a cloud over like Rob. It takes so little to create distortion and conspiracy. And I lean in and think about the fact that I was actually coming back from a seminar at one point telling Tyler, yeah, Ty, like Corona's really just like the flu. And I was saying that.
You did. We had that chat.
Yeah. And so I think we're complete. The point is, the global point number 1 is, and we're going to end on an upbeat, magical note, but anchoring on this. 1, we are the creators of our own stories. 2, consciously choose your stories. Consciously choose your stories. Because I haven't consciously chosen all my stories. And when I haven't consciously chosen and I've let other people choose for me out of guilt, peer pressure, caretaking, I have gotten crushed every single time. So consciously choose your stories that serve you. 3, right? There is objective truth. Like it is December 24th. Like that is a day, it's on the calendar, right? Objective truth is my name is Sean, your name is Joe or Rob or Patricia or Jack or Frank or TT, Teresa Trigus or Tiffany Noel or Joe Coburn. Like you have a name, right? Like that's a fact. It is not a fact that the vaccine is a way that you can be tracked and that you should not get a vaccine because you're afraid to be tracked. Like that's crazy. That's crazy. And so as we think about like the future and the reality of all things, let us choose intentionally and choose wisely. And here are my choices. And I'll ask you, Ty, what you think of them. And you can think of them as well. I am going to watch, I have a couple calls that I have today, and I'm going to honor them and love them. And I'm going to watch Christmas movies. And I'm going to watch Batman, Dark Knight. I'm going to watch Star Wars. And I'm going to fill my heart with stories of heroes that gave more than they took. I'm going to think about Jesus Christ being crucified horrifically, tragically, as one of the greatest examples in singular examples in human history of fear and distortion to commit murder and atrocity for ego and significance and lies. And I'm going to think about what that did to cause incredible and phenomenal things in human history and awful things in human history in the name of God. And I'm going to contemplate how to choose wisely, because I am incredibly clear and present to the fact that Jesus chose wisely. And that often those that have followed and believed in Jesus, in God, Christian God, the Father, have chosen unwisely, as has every religion, Muslim, Judaism, atheists, agnostics, Satan worshipers, all of it. Let's choose wisely and love unconditionally and give more value. Ty, final on that point. How are you feeling?
Yes. Yeah. I saw in the chat a couple things. One that I would like to speak into is I'm not talking to, essential workers or restaurant owners about, that's not, of course, number one is feeding your family always, right? You are responsible for you and your family. This is for social things that we're talking about, right? So I just want to clarify that. And, something that I've been seeing, if anyone here, I don't know if you know, Barstool Sports is a social media organization. And they have an attitude of very, kind of, it's in a political company, but they have kind of a more conservative frat guy sports approach. But their founder, Dave Portnoy, lately has been relentlessly giving to small businesses and restaurant owners because he understands the power of all of this. That's what this is all about, right? Helping people stay safe, not trying to convince people to go to your party. It's just about giving.
I was shamed. I was shamed in the last month for not going to a party after I had hugged 10 people in the 24 hours before who had COVID. Like unknown. And I was shamed for kowtowing to conspiracy theory of fear. I said, how can I go to this party? Nobody cares. I mean, nobody cares. Like, I was shamed. And that was a powerful moment for me of like, this is crazy. It was the person who was throwing the party saying, you have to come. I'm like, I'm not coming. I could never look at myself. I can't see. I could never experience myself in the mirror again, experience and confront myself. If I went to this party, I was like, I'm telling you, I was spending a lot of time with this person, that person, this person, and sat next to one of these people for hours and hugged and spoke face to face, a foot away for 30 minutes with this person who has COVID right now. We just found out. And I was with them 48 hours ago for 30-minute conversation face to face. So you want me to come? Yeah, nobody cares. I'm like, no. So like, that's what we're speaking into. And we're also speaking into, for a little bit of fun energy, you want to talk about restaurant owners? I think the Callaghy family may be some of the greatest supporters of takeout, restaurant, and food people. so about every meal, every day, in every way. So thank you for being an essential worker. Thank you for being a restaurant owner. Thank you for working and serving and giving, all of those things. Immense, immense gratitude. And everybody who's out there keeping our world functioning at this point, So Ty, any final?
Final. Just follow the guidelines, please. Over these next few weeks, as cases are high, just please, none of us know better than the experts. I don't think Unblinded has any, like epidemiologists that are working for the CDC in it. If you do, please, hop on. But we don't know better. We do not know better. We think we know better all the time. That's our nature. We don't know better. Please just be smart, be safe, and act in love for you, for your family, and for your friends, and for the people desperately trying to serve this nation. Please make their job a little bit easier. If you wouldn't litter to help the janitor, don't go to a party on New Year's, please.
Yeah. And Ty, just so people, because some people don't know you and haven't experienced you, just 20, 30 seconds on the magic of what you love about our family and what you love about family, so people can understand, appreciate the depth of your heart. For a second.
I mean, family is everything. We've spent every Christmas and Thanksgiving with 30, 40 family members, right? I mean, that's the best part of the year. We go in, see the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, discuss what's happened. We are a family, right? This is not sitting from a place where it's easy for us to stay apart. But every faction of our family, every small little clan, is staying apart. And that goes for the most diehard, Trump supporters to socialists in our family, from diehard Christians to atheists. It goes across the spectrum because we love each other enough to stay apart. And that's what all of us as an extended family have come to this year. And next year we'll have the cookie bake again. We'll have Thanksgiving again. We'll have Christmas again. But this year we're staying apart for each other.
Yeah. And as soon as this is clear, we are going to tear it up with live Unblinded events like crazy. And there could be the most powerful, insane ecosystem mergers that you could ever think of that have begun to unfold that are going to be mind-blowing. And I'm committed to causing those outcomes. And when it's open, it will be nonstop, utter insanity, but not like to distract us from our business, to cause intentional ecosystem merging, speaking engagements, acceleration, not just staying insular and socializing, having fun, although we'll do some of that, but to cause massive acceleration. And that is my gift, my wish, my commitment, flag in the ground, our commitment here going forward. And Ty, I want to end this on a very positive, fun flag in the ground note.
Yep.
So, haven't agreed to yet. And I want to ask you with this direct, loving confront. So, all right, here we go. So we've skied around the world. We've scuba dove with sharks. We've ice climbed waterfalls. We've, had baseball brawls and everything in between, right? We've lived an extraordinary life of adventure. Is that fair?
That is fair.
Okay. You've led snorkeling excursions at 6 years old with your 4-year-old sister and 3-year-old sister on my back and holding my hand as you were the pioneering lead hundreds of yards offshore in the middle of the ocean. Fair?
Fair. Accurate.
Okay. All right. So we're going to quarantine. I miss you. We haven't physically hugged in months, right?
In 4.5 months.
Yeah. So when this is done, and whenever in a week, whenever we're together and we're going to be under the same roof, we're talking about for like a month. Is that relatively fair?
Yep.
Okay. So what I want to ask you to do, and we'll film this, is we're in quarantine. It's just us. I need an adventure. I need a Tyler and Dad adventure desperately. So I am going to ask you, offer to you, propose to you, since I am honoring this entire dynamic, and this is a poor negotiation because I've already agreed to all this. I should have done it before the fact. I'm only kidding. Is when we're in LBI, we go to LBI in January together. We have the wetsuits, and I want to go in the ocean in January together in wetsuits, in low tide, and go body surfing. Is that a fair ask?
Fair. Done.
All right. So I love you, bud. Merry Christmas Eve. We'll be obviously Zooming, doing things throughout the day. And I'm jealous because you keep watching with Derek from Unblinded movies. I want to watch a movie on Zoom with you over the course of the next 24 hours. Is that a fair ask?
Fair. Yep. Done.
And I want you to pick the movie. And I don't want it to be a wacky German subtitle, Japanese subtitle. I want it to be like one of our movies. Is that fair?
Yes. The last 2 movies Eric and I watched were in German and Japanese. So
I'm not watching a German or Japanese subtitled movie. I'm blind. So that's not happening. All right. I love you, bud. And thank you for being here.
Love you too. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Just stay with us for 1 minute though, bud, in case. Adam, Fernando, let's go. Adam Gugino, commentary, final, brother, on Christmas Eve.
Just profound. As usual, Tyler, you never have to guess what he's thinking. Always in truth. Love him. Amazing. I'm present to variants of content starting yesterday, kicking the day off with Flavor Flav and kicking today off with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Consciously choosing your story. I'm choosing that Flavor Flav is my biggest fan in the world right now. So that's my final.
And the brother's got a clock on his chest. Fernando, Christmas Eve, brother. Merry Christmas Eve. What do you got?
Final. Tyler, love having you here, man. It is awesome. As I was listening to Martha yesterday, acknowledge Bella on the power of having, females on stage and, the beauty of what that's doing to the movement. I echo the same feelings for you as a fellow young man representing. It's awesome. It's incredible. I am not confused on your power, who you are. And what I love the most about you is just your humility. It's something I've had to work on, and I'm not sure if that was the same for you, but it is definitely natural feeling. So if you've worked on it intentionally or not, it is felt. It is felt in the comments. It is felt in the chat. Because if a lot of other people spoke the way you spoke, I don't think it would be received the way it's received. And that's, power of the formula. Yeah. So with that, I am grateful to be Zooming with my brothers today, as my brother's wife was tested positive for COVID 2 days ago.
Oh my gosh.
So thank you. They are okay. And I share that only to say that this conversation I had not thought about. It wasn't in my consciousness. I was planning 3 days ago to spend a typical Christmas with my 13 members. I don't have 30 or 40, mine is 13. And to me, that feels like 1,000. And not having them here certainly feels very interesting. I am still processing, and this conversation has helped accelerate the processing of that feeling. So thank you, Tyler, and thank you, Sean.
And Fran, if I could lean into 2 things real quick. Number one, I hope and pray that she is okay. And, Tyler's helped unblind me to the reality that we don't know like what okay means. And 5, 10 years and 6 months and, down the road, post COVID. And that's not to create fear. There's a lot of incredible functional medicine practitioners here that can help keep us healthier, that can help get us better. So you guys are serving the world. the physicians here that are keeping people safe and helping people heal holistically and traditionally, medically, all of those things present. So thank you all. And
Yeah, can I speak into that one sec? Quick thing.
Yeah.
I was just reading a study yesterday. It appears that vitamin D deficiency is a significant something that significantly leads to worse COVID complications. So if you want to do something preventative, drink water and take some vitamin D supplements, especially in the winter.
Absolutely. And I thank everybody like Joe Coburn and others, Dr. Vin, everything you're doing, and the Beamer machine. And my mom's been on the Beamer and she's doing quite well, you know, relatively. So we don't want to minimize. So to be clear, we don't want to get COVID. We don't want to give other people COVID. And when we have it, we want to think optimistically. We want to have faith, belief, full healing, health, but it is not the situation we want to be in. Like, I don't want to get bit by a shark. I'll deal with it if I do, right? But I don't want to get bit by a shark either. So like it is serious, and the effects can be profound and they're unclear. And if you had it, let's go with everything's going to be great, only to the effect of keeping your health strong. But let's also be like preventatively wise, you know, in our messaging to others. And I'm going to tighten myself up around all those spaces, Ty. And again, thank you for helping me see what I don't see. And Fernando, Tyler, and you follow a similar tracking in a couple of ways, at least. One way was both of you were not the cool kids when you were 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 and 13. So both of you share having in some ways have been excluded and feeling like perhaps you were in the world of the misfit toys. Now, Ty was never like a misfit toy, right? But he wasn't, you know, it was hard for him to connect, and he wasn't, you know, sharing some of the same motivations, perspectives, things that interested others. He wasn't a huge sports guy, like, and want to watch ESPN and all those things. And so I think both of you lived in, as many people here, in a space understanding what it felt like to find a difficult way to connect. And both of you then became super in demand and went through a pivot point in both of your lives where people wanted you around and wanted to hear what you had to say. So you've lived in both worlds. Ty, is that a yes from you?
Yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah. And Fernando, same for you, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And that could create an amazing, that could drive significance, or it can create humility, or a mixture of both, you know? And so just being present to all that. So listen, it's been a long one. If you've stayed, thank you for all the messaging, and Merry Christmas, and feel all of the most magical feelings possible today. Love yourself, love other people, connect to God as you see fit. For me, I will be in gratitude. I will be on my knees today, thanking God for the blessings that exist in my life. And I couldn't be more thankful for you and this movement and everything it means. After, you know, my family, this movement is what it's about. And I've made sacrifices and will not be seeing my children on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. And I am amazingly sensitive, nostalgic, desiring of magic. And that is painful. It is painful. And I will reframe that story. I'll experience my emotions. I'll process them because we don't want to deaden our emotions. And then I'm going to make these days magical. And I'm going to reboot, refresh, rest, and be ready to rocket forward and serve my family and this mission as we go forward. So love you guys. Chaz, and you know, this is I think the perfect final song. Do they know it's Christmas? Because it speaks into everything we're talking about. That as we're sitting here thinking the worst thing can happen to us, not with all the loved ones we want to be with on this day, but will be soon. There's people starving and dying all around the world who have no idea that it's Christmas. And my heart, my thoughts, my prayer go out to all of those in pain, in loss, in lack, in true scarcity. And with respect and love, I don't think any of us in this line, I'm going blind. My mother has COVID. I will not see my kids on Christmas. And I don't think I'm in scarcity. I am not in scarcity. I'm in abundance. I'm in massive abundance. And that's my choice. and you have a choice. Are you in scarcity or abundance? Because true scarcity means you can't eat today. True scarcity means you're dying, you're enslaved, you're falsely or wrongly imprisoned. You know, we have such blessings around us, no matter what we don't have today and tomorrow. Love you guys. Do they know it's Christmas? Have a beautiful and incredible day. And we'll be back tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. on Christmas morning to share a little bit and connect. Love you guys. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. Make it magical as you see fit. Love you.